And now, live from Jerusalem, you're listening to Israel-Inspired Radio. Here are your hosts, Rabbis Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel.
Shalom, and you are listening to Israel Inspired on the Land of Israel Network. This is Ari Abramowitz here with the JJ. How you doing, Jeremy?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
You look good.
Do I?
Yeah, you're vegan. You don't eat animal products anymore. You've been doing that for a few weeks. It's really showing.
That's true. I actually just weighed myself. I haven't lost anything. But that's okay. It's not about the weight.
What is it about?
For me, it's primarily, honestly, about the health. Now, you think that weight would be a gauge of health, but I'm not sure that that's always true. Maybe this veganism is radically transforming all of my adipose tissue into solid muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat, so I could be gaining weight.
Yeah, potato chips, they're vegan.
The potato chips are vegan. This is true.
You can have a lot of potato chips.
Falafel is vegan. Falafel is vegan. That's true. Shayna and I were watching a number of documentaries on veganism, and really the health benefits were what pulled me the most. But I do feel more alkaline, more in tune with nature. I mean, there's really no excuse for the factory farming stuff. If you want to have your own animals or eat sustainably farmed animals that had songs sung to them when they were children and raised in preschools and kindergartens, then that's like, I have no problem with that. But it's only the factory farming thing. But whatever. I remember for the 10 minutes that you were a vegan a few years ago,
for more than a year.
You were in the New York Times about your veganism because you were simply using that to strengthen your own commitment to it by getting it out there as loud as possible so your wife would approve of your lifestyle, because she's been pressuring for you to be a vegan for a long time. But that's neither here nor there. Let us proceed. All right, so there's a number of sort of heavy things that I wanted to talk about today. They can be looked at as heavy, but they're also part of a great movement that's happening in the world. All right, so let's talk about the fun stuff to start with. So, number one, you recently released a musical single.
Yeah.
The musical single. I mean, this was a pretty big deal for you.
Yeah, it's more than a year. I've been working on the album, the music video, the ebook, and eventually I just been like, all right, it's time.
Well, let's take a few steps back on this musical single and really give some deeper, more psychological background to it. So, and I think there's a lesson to be learned also about friendship, about the power of words. You know, we've shared before, abracadabra. It comes from avra kedabra, I will create as I speak. And many years ago, you were singing, and I, just like we're best friends, and I little joke, a little jab, said you sound like a duck when you sing. And I saw that like affected you, so I continued to say that you sound like a duck, as we would do for each other. When something affects me, you know that you got an Achilles heel and you're going to go for it. So I said you sounded like a duck. And for a long time, you were, I think, honestly self-conscious that you sounded like a duck when you were singing, because I said it so many times.
So many times.
And then when I realized that was like a real thing, it was before our inauguration of this, I said, Jeremy, you don't sound like a duck. And you're like, it's okay. You don't sound like a duck, Jeremy. It's okay. Jeremy, you don't sound like a duck. And then you burst out crying on my shoulder and we embraced.
None of that.
That was a scene from Good Will Hunting.
Oh my God.
But there was something similar to that. And then I was like, Jeremy, stop it. You don't sound like a duck. And you actually have quite a nice voice.
It's really
it's
funny.
Distinct.
It's really funny how somehow through the prism of Ari Abramowitz, it was all about what you said and how you said it.
Oh, so you're saying the duck thing didn't affect your relationship with music at all, because you told me yourself.
Yeah, maybe
you want to be ego defensive now
and
act like no, nothing for me, and the duck thing didn't affect you. Listen, we're not going to talk about the duck thing this whole show, but the bottom line is, at our inauguration, you had your first, solo musical event at the end of our inauguration. That couldn't have been easy, but it was awesome. And then you got this juke in your head that you wanted to make an album. So what was that about? Tell me about the album.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's fun that you're asking. And it's really fun the amount of positive feedback that I've gotten. We just put it up 2 days ago, and you never really know what's going to happen. You put something up on YouTube, put something up on Facebook, and there's so much noise in the world. Like, how do you break through the noise to get people's attention? But the feedback of so many people from all over the world have already pre-ordered the ebook. So many people have downloaded the album. I mean, it's really like the feedback and messages and emails and WhatsApps that I've received. It's really like nice because, 4 years ago, we came out to these mountains, and it was before we were at all partners in this farm, building up this place, building this dream. And I just fell in love with these mountains. And when I discovered that King David wrote most of the book of Psalms here in the history that happened in these mountains, I used to just come out here alone before there were almost any buildings out here, and just alone with my guitar. And I would start the morning prayers. I used to work in Yerushalayim, and I would stop here in the morning, take out my guitar, put on my talit and tefillin, and I would just pray here in these mountains. And then all of these melodies started coming to me. And then eventually, like just in my own exploration of what prayer meant to me, of how I wanted to live my days and how I wanted to start my days and what I wanted my mornings to look like, eventually, the morning prayers just came out into these beautiful melodies. And then I said, well, for years, I was just me and God, just alone. No one knew the songs. No one knew anything. And then eventually I felt like these are such beautiful melodies and such good songs. If I get the right musicians behind me, it could really be a blessing for the world. And so I took a lot of my savings, because it's expensive to make a real album professionally. And I just said, all right, this is going to be my gift to the Jewish people, my gift to the world, of those who want to connect to the
I think
book
you said
of Psalms.
something about if you pass away beforehand, you want to give Tehillah something to listen to in her final years without you.
Yeah. Well, thank God she has all
Was
of
that
our...
the truth? You said that, right?
Yeah. I mean, for her, for my grandkids, for my great-grandkids, like what's so nice about music or books or podcasts or any really creation that you create, it's there. And once it's in the world, it will outlive me, that's for sure. And so now it's just like so nice. The music video was done really beautifully, and it really, I feel like, captures the beauty of the place that we're in and where all of it happened. And so, it's just been an awesome journey, and it's only been up for 2 days and has thousands of views. And, it's really exciting because I don't see myself as a musician. I don't, never saw myself as that.
What do you see yourself as?
A broadcaster, a teacher, an educator. But I guess this is just another way of delivering a message. Yeah, but for me, I think the most important thing is, I've definitely chosen a different path. It's different than most people. I've taken my 6 kids and I've moved to the deepest settlement in Judea to live a life that's a little bit more connected to nature, a little bit more connected to the animals that are here, a little bit more of a biblical lifestyle, a little bit more the way that the prophets and the patriarchs and matriarchs of Israel used to live. And the life out here has changed my life. And, I've been through hard times. And even the move out here was a hard decision to make, but it was even a harder life to live through. And then what has emerged from this is a certain lifestyle, a certain way of seeing the world, a certain way of interacting with the world, a certain decision of how I want to live my life. And the ebook is an expression of that. It's like the way the Judeans used to live is the way I believe we should be living now. And so the ancient practices of Israel that were passed down by the prophets of Israel, who were such spiritual giants, who understood, this world is not an easy place to live. And they gave us guidance of how we're meant to live in the world, how we're meant to live every day, how we're meant to bring blessing into our lives, and not only survive the struggles of life, but really emerge powerful, emerge happy, emerge empowered. And so I think that the lifestyle living out here, going to sleep when I go to sleep, waking up when I wake up, it's just different. And then articulating that and then sharing that, it's more than just a music. It really is a lifestyle. And it's a Jewish lifestyle. It's the way the Jewish people used to live, and it's what's encoded, in fact, not only in Jewish law, but in Jewish tradition, of just what was the way that we used to live. And I look around the world today, and so many people that are living the Western lifestyle, they're stressed out, they're nervous, they're upset, they're frustrated, they're looking for themselves, they're looking for meaning. They're just like grasping on for dear life and being swatted from one direction to the other. And I feel like there is a way to realign ourselves every morning with these practices, and it's literally changed my life. And so if I'm able to help change other people's lives for the better and bring that music and bring that message and that guidance and help them, what else do I need in the world? I think that's like our mission here, is to bring a light from Zion to the world, a light from the mountains of Judea.
Yeah, so I'm excited to read the book. I'm actually starting to work on my own myself. But I'll tell you that throughout my journey, I have probably stacks and stacks and stacks, maybe 2 feet tall, of papers in which I've been trying to codify my daily framing. Because I don't know if you remember that movie Memento from years ago, where the guy, every few minutes, he totally forgets who he is and where he's from. And so I feel like that sometimes, like, who am I? What's my mission? So I have this like a mantra divided into categories in my life, motivations for each thing, best practices for those things, goals in those things. But it seems like you're really codifying it in an interesting way, and I hope you share some of the mantras that we've gone through together over the years.
Well, there were a few movies that sort of touched on this ultimate truth. I remember one of them was called, I think, 50 First Dates, where this girl would wake up and she forgot everything about her whole existence that day. And then that day the guy would have to win her over again. And it just kept on happening, for 50 First Dates. That every time you just have to, like, she didn't remember anything.
I'm not going to ask why you're watching 50 First Dates.
It was like a movie from like the early 90s, I think. And then the other movie that you mentioned was Memento, where this guy also, I think he woke up every morning and then had no short-term memory or long-term memory. And he had to like have all these notes everywhere reminding him what he was doing and why he was doing it. And I feel like, why were those movies so compelling? I think the truth is because all of us live in that existence. It's just a spectrum. Meaning, I remember just this last week, my 3-year-old Noam came up to me and he said, "Abba, we didn't snuggle today." And then I, of course, said, "Oh my goodness, that's our job. We have to snuggle every day." And then we ran to the couch and we were snuggling on the couch. And I'm looking at Noam, and Noam looks exactly the way that my 15-year-old Lavi used to look when he was 3. It's like looking at a spitting image of my oldest son. And I was trying to like conjure up memories of me and Lavi together when he was 3. And it's really, really hard. I just don't rest. I went and looked at pictures, and then pictures sort of jogged my memory from when he was 3. But all of us have this 50 First Dates thing. It's just called life. It's just called human existence. And every morning we wake up with a little bit of amnesia. And never mind forgetting past memories from 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Just like remembering who we are, what our purpose is, what our mission is. Are we aligning ourselves with our ultimate purpose? Are we aligning ourselves with the ultimate good in the world? Are we choosing to live in a consciousness that we want to live in? Are we like letting our desires guide us? Are we letting our fears guide us? Like, who are we? Because how we choose to kind of modify our minds is what will end up happening throughout our day. And the beginning of the day is what's going to set the stage for the rest of the day. And if you change your morning, you change your day. And if you change your days, you change your life. So if you win the morning, you really win the day. And that's really, to me, it's like the ultimate truth, that if you start your days off as the prophets of Israel passed down, it's just a sure way to make sure that your day is going to be better, stronger, more focused, more blessed, more happy. It's just the right way to be. And so, yeah, it's being codified. I'm going to be done with it hopefully probably in about a month. It's really like at the very, very end stages now. And it's really, really exciting. And it's just like, I'm happy that I'm able to kind of take what I've done over the last 4 years and really share it with the world.
And not to belabor this album, because we have a lot to talk about on the show. We're already 14 minutes in and we're still talking about this, but I think you would be remiss not to mention the real differentiating factor that makes it so special and the people love the most.
The triangle.
The triangle.
The triangle.
It's the triangle.
It is true. Ari is like the star of the music video.
And the irony, some people have stories about themselves that aren't really true. You had a story for a while that you sounded like a duck, but the truth is that you don't. But I really have no musical ability. Very, very, very little. I can't carry a tune. So the thought that I would be in a band and I would be playing an instrument, which is the only instrument I ever really successfully learned how to play. I remember very clearly from kindergarten, which was the last time I played it, was the triangle. So I do play the triangle in this, and it's really very well executed, very well done. Okay, so moving on. Where can people get this album?
Yeah, just go to thelandofisrael.com. There should be a link right there. You can email me, Jeremy at thelandofisrael.com. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube. Type in Jeremy Gimpel Psalm 150. The music video is right there. And then in the description, there's links to download the ebook and to order the album. But to me, the music is beautiful. I mean, it's, you never know, I didn't know. It's like a little bit nerve wracking. Like, I'm going to put this music out into the world. Are people going to like it? Are they not going to like it? It's a little bit like nerve wracking to just do something so new and really put yourself out there. And I'm thrilled that people are so excited about it. But to me, more important than the music really is the ebook. And there's just like one line in the Torah that sums it all up. And it's uvacharta b'chaim, to choose life. And I think about that all the time, because if you don't choose life, then life is just going to take you wherever it takes you. And life sometimes can take people, and it will take people, to hard places, to dark places, to challenging places, to sad places. But the one thing that we have is our choice to choose life, to choose the tree of life, to choose it. And when you choose it, it's a daily avoda. It's a daily service. It's a daily practice. It's a daily work to orient yourself to the ultimate good, to actually start off your day with modani, to start off not just saying, thank you, God, for giving me another day on this planet, but to really feel it. And then if you feel it, and that's what the music is there for, to help people to like feel that emotion. If you actually wire yourself in the morning that the first thing you're thinking about aren't the stresses and concerns of life, but just the gratitude that you have for all of the goodness that is in your life and the love that you have in your life. And then you start your day, you're going to change your life. You're just going to be, because there's so many challenges here in Israel. I mean, just in this last week, we had this beautiful 19-year-old girl who was murdered. And so it's challenging. And so this is like at least my medicine to how do we overcome and how do we emerge victorious?
All right, so let's talk about that. Ori Ansbacher, Zichrona Livracha. This past Thursday night, we heard about it, and this wave of extreme pain, it like pulsed through the country. Our dear friend, I'm not going to say his name, but a very dear friend of ours, he's in an elite army unit. The guy's just like a soldier, knows no fear. He called me, he was crying. I mean, really like just crying. His daughter was best friends with Ori. Ori was his son's counselor in Bnei Akiva. Just the things you hear about her from everybody, just the kindness and compassion and spiritual sensitivity, loving goodness. And then you picture what she went through. The horror, I mean, it's like rare to imagine a more stark contrast between good and evil, between light and darkness, as what happened to this girl. And that's when I start going into like my own place of darkness, even though I don't know if it's darkness. Maybe I shouldn't call it dark. Maybe it's healthy. It's maybe the healthiest thing that's happening here. But my mind starts racing through scenarios of what I'd want to do to this Arafat Erfia guy if I had the opportunity to do it. And then I talk to my friends and I tell them, and it seems like everybody that I talk to says, oh, this is what and they've all thought it through. Everybody is picturing what they would want to do to this guy, and it would be a protracted, painful death. And it really upsets me that we have to think like this, that we have to have these feelings, because we all have this perception, this understanding, this truth that the government is not doing their job, that they are viewing this whole thing in a politically correct Western way rather than how it really is. And that, and so we have this desire for justice. That's what a vigilante is, someone that takes the law into their own hands, because the law isn't doing the law. The law isn't implementing justice as it's meant to be, and giving a punishment that's worthy of the crime. And I'm not sure it's unhealthy. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you heard about this, at least 150 young Jews demonstrated Tuesday at the entrance to the Abu Snene neighborhood of Hebron, where Arafat Erfia was from. And they were calling for revenge, which, by the way, revenge is a topic that has been stigmatized in Western culture, but the Torah perspective of it is indeed much more nuanced. There's times that it's a very good thing, and there's times that it's a very bad thing. But to say that revenge in and of itself is bad, that's just not the Torah perspective, nor is it the intuitive, healthy human perspective. And this group, they were calling for the end of the pay to slay policy in the Palestinian Authority. They set aside 7% of their annual budget to give very generous monthly donations, monthly salary for terrorists and the family of terrorists who die while trying to kill Jews or killing Jews.
I heard Netanyahu just come out saying he is going to stop the payments now. And I'm like, why has this been going on for 5, 6, 7 years? Well, now you're stopping it? What, because the elections are around the corner? Like, you want a trophy that now you've decided to stop paying? I mean, imagine what the scenario is. The European Union and the United Nations are giving money to the Palestinian Authority, and then the Palestinian Authority is giving money to these murderers. So it is the Europeans that are continuing the work that they started 74, 75 years ago in the Holocaust, and they've just outsourced it to the Arabs that are now killing the Jews. But they are single-handedly funding an army of merciless mercenaries to kill Jews. And when you really juxtapose this murderer, terrorist, disgusting, vile monster versus Uri and what she looks like and who she was, it's like, I don't know, you need like orcs from the movie, the what's that movie called, with the Hobbit. It's like the horrible monsters versus like this beautiful, sweet, loving, wonderful little girl. It's like light and darkness in such obvious terms, and yet still where people can just look and see like with their own eyes.
And then you see this guy smiling. The picture of him smiling makes me want to rip his face off of his skull. I know maybe it sounds violent. I'm just being honest.
It's just in the mainstreaming of anti-Semitism and the hatred of Israel just continues to rise, even though the world, I mean, just look, and no news outlets really covered the murder. It was like totally swept under the rug. CNN, BBC, every time a Jew throws a stone at an Arab car, it's like international scandal. But this, no one even talks about. It's just so frustrating.
So, the organizers of these 150 youth that went and demonstrated in Hebron, they said that the Israeli policy sees every terror attack as a lone wolf attacker and turns a blind eye to the supportive environment, to the encouragement, and the support for the terrorists. They said the time has come to return to a policy of reprisals in which the terrorist environment is seen as responsible for the terror it produces, which is obviously true. It's obviously true that they're not lone wolf, that this is not just some because where did he go? He went to hide in Ramallah. And when the security forces went into Ramallah to get him, what were they faced with? The entire city is throwing Molotov cocktails, throwing rocks, attacking them, seeking to kill them in any way possible, protecting this rapist murderer. It's like an entire community of demons that are I mean, you can say, okay, it's we're fighting for the liberation of Palestine, Israeli soldiers, but rape and murder a 19-year-old girl, and they're going to protect him with vengeance? This is a communal, if there's any argument to make for collective punishment, it's here. It's here. And not only that, we just talked about the pay to slay. They are money from the Palestinian Authority. They're going to pay a rapist murderer of a 19-year-old girl. What more proof is there for the world to see that this isn't a political issue? It's not about land. This is a deep-seated, evil, overwhelming obsession of the soul.
I don't understand. Who are we trying to convince that this isn't a political issue? Meaning it's not a political issue. Are we trying to convince the haters of Israel that it's not a political issue? They know in their hearts that it's not a political issue because they hate the Jews the same way that their grandparents hated the Jews in the Holocaust. Not much has changed in human nature or in European nature or in Arab nature. The Mufti and Hitler were like partners in crime. Nothing has really changed. It's not like we've evolved so much over the last 70 to 75 years. We're dealing with the same realities. The only thing that needs to change is Israel's mind. We need to understand that this isn't a political issue. We need to take action and seek justice. And if we do what we need to do, not regarding at all what the world will say, because whatever we do, the world is going to condemn us. We got out of Gaza. The world's condemning us for blocking Gaza. It just doesn't matter because the Israel hatred is always going to be there. So let's just look for justice. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. What is the right thing? What is the true thing? What is the moral thing? Do that, no fear. It doesn't matter what the nations say. It matters what the Jews do. That's what Ben Gurion said. What a brilliant man. That's what we need. We just need to do what we need to do. But the problem now is all of the political leadership, from Bibi to Bennett, they've all just been so absorbed into just dealing with
current obstacles and constraints that they feel.
Supreme Court and of the this.
Which, by the way, you'd hope that Trump would inspire them and let them see that something else is possible, right? Just for like Trump or dislike Trump, he definitely broke the constraints. There were so many times in his journey that everyone was like, he's done for. This guy's political career is over, and he won, and he now has a pretty high approval rating.
It's the highest approval rating so far.
Exactly. So the point is that, we can look at the government, and the truth is that the people of Israel elect right-wing governments and very often get left-wing policies. But beyond that, you're right. It really, a government, regardless of whether it's a totalitarian dictatorship or a democracy, is a reflection of the people at large, the majority of the people, and so we really need to do that internal work. Just last night, I was talking to Eliezer Botzer. Eliezer, he's been on the show a number of times. He's a famous musician here in Israel, very talented. Even just today, he was asked by the family of of Ori, Zichrona Livracha, to go to Ein Yael, where she was murdered, and he's doing a little concert there at 4:30 p.m., like a memorial event, musical memorial for her at the site there. And I was talking to him last night, and he told me that this reminded him of the Egla Arufa. Do you remember the Egla Arufa?
Yeah, of course.
So in short, we could go into what the Egla Arufa is, but the Torah tells us in a situation where there's someone that's found murdered and they don't know who it was and it's between two villages, then the leadership has to take out a calf and slaughter it there and say, this blood is not on our hands. And Nechama Leibowitz, she was a Torah scholar, she said, we see then that responsibility for an evil act does not fall only on the perpetrator and not just on the abettor. The crime does not only involve cooperation, but also negligence, omission, and inattention. One who sits in his quiet corner and ignores the rest of society and its corrupt ways, and, quote, with dualists do not mingle, meaning they're just hanging out with their religious, spiritual friends, and guards his soul from every safeguard, and sees oppression and theft and robbery, but does not arise, and does not move, and does not struggle, and does not protest, he also cannot say, our hands have not spilled this blood. And that's really what I think we all need to be asking ourselves, the same question as the Egla Arufa. So the leadership, of course, needs to be blamed for this. A spokesman for the Shin Bet said that Arafat, just the name, Arafat Erfia, had spent time in prison. That's how they caught him, because he was in prison, they got genetic and they were able to match his genetics. He spent time in prison for security-related offenses that had crossed into Israel without a permit before carrying out the murder. Hebrew media reported that the suspect is affiliated with Hamas, though neither the terror group nor others have claimed responsibility for the attack. But what the terrorists did say, Arafat said he was going to do anything to either become a martyr or to end up in an Israeli prison. But from the way he was saying it, it seems like he would prefer to end up in an Israeli prison, because these prisons in Israel they get degrees, they eat better, they're relaxed, they have a much better life, some of them, than they do outside of prison. They get treated, and they're heroes, so of course he wants to be in prison, and he'll do whatever he has to do to be in prison, so now he gets the best of both worlds.
It is good business right now to kill Jews in Israel. And that needs to stop.
Right. And so one thing is the prisons in Israel need to be hellholes. Hell on earth. Anyone should prefer death to be in a prison here in Israel. But right now it's just we're so much trying to appeal to the Western sense of rehabilitation rather than punishment. So that's one. Another thing is that we have, and that's a small thing. The real issue we need to look at is that we're facing a fifth column in the country. Now, I've said a fifth column before, but I actually looked it up. This is the definition. A fifth column is any group of people who undermine a larger group from within, usually in favor of an enemy group or nation. The activities of a fifth column can be overt or clandestine. Forces gathered in secret can mobilize openly to assist an external attack. That's exactly what we have in Israel. We have 1.5 million Arab Israelis in the country. How many of them do you think identify and associate with their Israeli identity or their Palestinian Arabs that happen to have an Israeli Teudat Zehut identity card? Of course, they identify as Arabs and they want the destruction of Israel, the vast majority of them. So it's not a lone wolf. They went in to catch this guy, and there's an entire village, city in Ramallah that are trying to kill the soldiers. I mean, to me, we both looked at each other. We're like, there's something called a MAG, right? A MAG is the heavy machine gun. When these people are throwing Molotov cocktails and rocks, shoot them all. Shoot them all. Is that not obvious?
I don't understand it. I don't understand how we can live in a country where the police go into a neighborhood and they're being stones are being hurled at their cars. People can get killed with stones. I don't understand how every single one of those people are not being arrested, stopped, neutralized. I don't get it. And I think that it's really interesting that all of this is happening in the wake of the Israeli elections that are just weeks away. And of course, the Israeli religious right are in total shambles. There's like 4 different parties that are all fighting with each other, and they haven't gotten their act together. And that could be an absolute disaster. And then like in 2 seconds, we actually might have a left-wing government. And once there is a left-wing government, I mean, there could be a disengagement immediately. And there's not really much you can do. If a law is passed and the army is activated, there's really nothing you can do to stop it. And we are like feet away from the elections. And the right now in Israel is just really floundering. And I just always wonder every time an election comes around, could Mashiach possibly emerge from these Israeli elections?
Well, I mean, that's what I was hoping with Ori's murder. When it happened, I was like, it was so jarring and so painful that I davened. I said, please Hashem, let this be that which sparks whatever emotions we need to have as a nation in Israel, whether it's rage, indignation, fury, love, unity, togetherness, whatever it is that we're lacking that we need, let this arouse us from our slumber and wake us up, because something needs to wake us up. Something needs to open our eyes to who we are and what we need to do. But let me ask you a question. You're talking about the Israeli elections. I think a lot of people out there are a little confused with exactly what happened. There was the Beit Yehudi, the Jewish Home Party. It was religious, but also not religious, but a lot of people perceived it as religious, but it was the right wing, not the most right in the country, but then it split up. Can you give like a brief from your own, I know you're not like deeply swimming in the waters of politics, but how you see what's actually going on here?
Yeah, so the the old head of the Beit Yehudi, his name is Naftali Bennett, and his kind of sidekick, Ayelet Shaked, although I think Ayelet Shaked is actually more popular than Naftali Bennett himself, they used to head the religious Zionist movement within Israel, at least in the political sphere. And just a few weeks ago, Naftali Bennett and Ayelet Shaked said they're done with the religious Zionist movement, and they are starting their own party called the New Right. And they are going to be a secular and religious party, and they're not going to be connected to rabbis, they're not going to be connected to any other parties, and they're going to be doing their own thing, which left the religious Zionist movement a little bit in shambles. So people are trying to pick up the pieces and figure it out. Now, the traditional right wing in Israel is comprised of 2 parties, the Jewish Home Party and the National Union. Now, the head of the National Union, he is a brilliant, sharp, awesome, wonderful guy. He's probably the guy that, out of all the Chavrei Knesset in Israel, I most identify with him. His name is Bezalel Smotrich. And so now there's a new head to the Beit Yehudi. His name is Rav Rafi Peretz. He was the head rabbi of the IDF. He was a helicopter pilot. He heads one of the biggest yeshivot, mechinot, that prepare people spiritually in Torah before they go into the army in Israel. Very impressive guy. And now it was obvious that the Beit Yehudi and the National Union were going to join forces and move forward. But they are now, in some sort of boring negotiation over irrelevant, like the scraps of Longshank's table. They're just fighting over very little nuanced things that for them are very important. Probably a lot of it is ego driven. Who needs to be the head of the party? Who needs to be the face of the party? And in the meantime, all these other parties are campaigning and moving forward. And in the meantime, the religious right are just kind of squabbling amongst themselves. Now, with all of that, Bezalel Smotrich wants to bring on the far right party called Otzma Israel. And they are probably the inheritors of Rav Meir Kahana. And they are a little bit anti-establishment. They are very right-wing. They're very provocative. But they, a lot of people at this stage in the game are becoming anti-establishment because the establishment is not doing what needs to be done. And so they're saying, all right, well, I'm just going to vote as right as I possibly can. Bezalel Smotrich realizes that it wants to make a block with this far right-wing party. But the Beit Yehudi head doesn't want that because, he's like a rabbi in the army and he's very, traditional and kind of just like, very establishment. And so it's just a big spaghetti of nonsense and politics. And in the meantime, all of these other parties are moving forward, and the people that represent God, religion, Israel, Torah, army, yeshiva, all of like the things that we would normally just be like, wow, that's like, this is the values-based party. This is like, I'm not voting for politics. I'm just going to vote for the values and the integrity and for these people that are just upright and good. They're just really disappointing right now. And I wonder, every time an election comes around, could Mashiach emerge from these Israeli elections? So right now, it doesn't look like that's about to happen, but you just never know. Meaning King David, people know that he was anointed to become king by by Shmuel, but he waited literally until the entire nation of Israel came together and said, we want you to be the king. He was democratically nominated as king of Israel, even though he was anointed way years beforehand. Even after King Saul died, David did not just assume the leadership or take the leadership. He waited in Hebron for all of the tribes of Israel to come together and say, here we are. We were just talking yesterday that Benjamin Netanyahu, it's interesting that Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. Could Benjamin Netanyahu be the precursor to a leader that will arise? I don't know. It feels like biblically we're like somewhere.
A leader that will arise that would mirror Saul, meaning that,
or David.
No, I don't think so. I think for me, this is all just total speculation. But Benjamin Netanyahu, I don't think his name is accidental. So it's Benjamin. So he would be a Saul-like character.
Right.
And my perception is he's been prime minister for a long time. He's had a lot of opportunities. He's a good man with good motivations, but he's not the leader that we are hoping for and praying for that's going to lead Israel to days of glory and light for the world. And so I think another leader will arise, and he will be fighting against that leader. Meaning he will be the Saul-like character that is fighting against whatever leader arises in whatever way.
Well, it seems like that really is maybe right around the corner, that there is going to be this politically incorrect, anti-establishment guy that rises up and really speaks what's on the heart of so many people, like the words that can't be said, but that need to be said, and the actions that need to be done. And so, with all of this, there's just been so much tragedy and pain and suffering that's like all around us all of the time. We're just like these sheep surrounded by wolves here in Israel. But I feel like, here out in the mountains of Judea, every day that goes by, we're like building it up. And the reason why they're attacking us is because they don't want us in this land. And every time that we're here in the deepest settlement in southeastern Gush Etzion, it just gives me a lot of solace and peace of mind, knowing that I'm doing what I can do. And the people that are supporting us are doing what they can do. And as they continue to attack us, we're continuing to build. And just the other day was like maybe a week ago. It was like the middle of the night. Teal and I had just gotten into bed, and we were just saying, oh, this is so nice. What a long day. It's so nice to just be under the covers and be in this comfortable bed. And we had just fallen asleep, and it was so nice. And then I get a phone call in the middle of the night from Shayna, Ari's wife.
Well, just to clarify, you didn't receive a call. Tehila received a call because you keep your phone off at night, which to me is crazy. It's a crazy thing. It's a lack of being really connected with the magnitude of the situation that we're in out here. We don't have fences or alarm systems. You got to keep your phone on at night because how else are you going to be reached if there's an emergency like happened right then?
We have walkie-talkies.
Yes, we have walkie-talkies. I saw the walkie-talkie. Your little girl was playing it under the table in the kitchen. That was the walkie-talkie. Anyways, so go ahead from your perspective, even though it probably should be started from my perspective.
So start from your perspective.
So Shayna and I, it's maybe 12:30 at night, and then we hear, "Pew," and the electricity goes out. So I go to the electrical box, and I'm trying this, and I'm trying that. Now, because our laundry machine is outside, and our dryer is outside, and a lot of the entire construction of this entire mountain and the retreat center and the prayer house is all being powered from the electrical socket behind my sink that's going out the window and powering the entire place. So I didn't turn that one on, and it turned on for a second, and then it went out. Turned on for a second, and went out. So then we're like, okay, you know what? So we don't have electricity. We'll figure it out in the morning. Let's go back to sleep. We go back to sleep, and then we hear, and it's just crazy sound effects, and it looks like we're either being shot at or lightning is going off outside. And then we look outside through the bedroom window, and we see a fire that has erupted right under our Tractorone work vehicle. So it's parked right under the work vehicle. This fire has erupted. Now I am just sleeping. I hope our listeners are not visual thinkers, but I ran outside barefoot in the freezing rain in my underwear, and Shayna runs outside in similar condition. I didn't know what to grab. I wasn't ready, so I grabbed my gun, and Shayna grabbed her phone, which was a smarter thing to do. And then I said, call Daniel, call the security guy from Ibea Nachal. And she's like, I don't have his number. And so I ran in to get my phone. She called you. Your phone was off, of course. We wouldn't want to bother you. And then Tehila answered her phone and told you, and you ran over. You were wearing shoes. You were wearing a jacket. You came from that side. And you want to take it over from here?
Yeah. It was the middle of the night, and what happened was my entire house right now is powered by an extension cord that connects Ari's house to my house. We're now working on finishing the final infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure of the place, but until then, that's how my house is powered. And it's a tricky game because I have to turn on some things, but I can't turn on all things. I can have like one AC running, but then I can't have the dishwasher running. I have to have like the dryer running, but then not the washing machine. So it's like a little bit of a game that we have to play all the time just to make our electricity work. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, around 12:30, we were already fast asleep. The electricity in my house blows out. Why? Because the electrical wire that connects us set on fire. And as soon as it went out pretty loud in my house, and in the middle of the night, the power went out. I didn't even notice it. Only problem was Emunah, my 5-year-old, blood-curdling screams. The power going out freaked her out so much, screaming at the top of her lungs. Once she started screaming at the top of her lungs, then of course Noah, my 3-year-old who sleeps in her room, he started screaming at the top of his lungs. That somehow woke up Chen, my little baby, who's just a year and a half. And I don't know how this happened because it was just amazing divine orchestration. But Chen had a massive diarrhea that went out of her diaper, up her back, down her legs, and it's pitch black in my house right now. And then we get a call from Shayna saying there's an electrical fire. Quickly come over. And I'm like, wow, we went to bed. It was so comfortable and so warm. And so I quickly get on my shoes, put on a jacket. It's raining outside, and I run over and I see that there is a fire right under our work vehicle. So I quickly jump in the work vehicle, take it out. And as I'm like sitting on the work vehicle, I'm like, this thing could just easily blow up. Yeah. I really hope it doesn't blow up as I am on it right now. And eventually, we moved the truck to Ron. We took care of the fire. It was
explain what you did. It was actually quite innovative, right? You just took a huge stone, because I was screaming, "Don't put water on it," because it's an electrical fire in the middle of the wire. The wire itself is flames are shooting out of it. So you just put a big stone on top of it.
No, we just quenched the fire, and then Baruch Hashem, I didn't have electricity for I think it was a little bit more than 2 days.
Right, but the story's not over. So then it was done, and we decided, okay, we'll go back in bed. And then we were lying in bed, and Shayna says, "Is there a fly in here?" Now, living on a farm, there are certain seasons of the year where you see the first fly. You're like, "Oh, it's fly season." Then it's mosquito season. So it's not fly season right now. So I said, "A fly?" She said, "Yeah, I hear a fly." I said, "Do you remember we just had a fire seconds ago? Maybe the fire is started. So we went out and the fire was starting again, right? So from under the rock. So then Yossi, our partner, he came out here. We went to the central electrical thing. We shut that off. He cut off your wire. So then we had perfect electricity because the extension cord was cut off to your place, and then you were stuck without electricity. But you very graciously offered us to stay in your home.
That's true. We didn't have electricity for almost 2 days, or maybe a little bit more than 2 days. And that's just the reality of living out here. You know, we had a generator, and thank God the generator was able to kind of keep our fridge working and keep our freezer working, and kind of like whatever basics we had to do at one point. Now we're really like down to really minimal electricity. And, you know, it is just the reality of kind of pioneering it out in the deepest settlement in Judea. We're just now finishing up the electrical infrastructure. And, you know, we'd sent out a few messages to friends of ours saying, listen, you know, this is a pretty big project to finish the electrical infrastructure for this entire place. And this was before the fire. And just dear friends of ours from Florida, just a group of like just beautiful people that are real believers, just good, solid, wholesome, godly people. And they came together and they said, we're going to help you part of the way. And they'd committed to giving us money. And we now, like, slowly but surely, as like there's so many challenges against us, knowing that we're like building and continuing to grow and continuing to lay down roots here in Judea, it is the answer to the BDS movement and the rise in anti-Semitism and the terror all around us, that the Jewish people are back in the land of Israel, and we're only getting stronger. And we're only
sometimes it
continuing to
feels
build.
like we're digging ourselves out of a hole, though, because we're not just trying to proceed with the building. And of course, for this type of thing, we can't take loans from the bank or do any of the financing things that normal projects like this would do. And so we're in a different situation altogether. And we're like digging out of a pit because we're also still right now to this day, there are all of our electrical wires are just lying all over the ground, right there. It's like the danger of the situation is still right there. When we walked by, I remember you said it, we walked by my house, you said, it's funny how something can appear normal after enough time of looking at it, that the electrical wires coming out of my house are just like frazzled, skewed everywhere. And that's just the way it is. So we still have this situation that we need to fix of the electrical infrastructure and getting it underground. And that was much more expensive than we thought it was to begin with, and to do all of the building. But let me just take this opportunity. If anyone out there wants to Dafka help us with the electrical infrastructure, what we need about 50,000 shekels to do it.
Another.
So it's not necessarily the most exciting thing to do. It's not, the diadem on the crown of the prayer house, but it is the electrical infrastructure, and it does pose a real significant threat. It's very dangerous for children and for all of us, and that would be a tremendous contribution to the foundation of this place. So reach out to us, Ari at the Land of Israel, Jeremy at the landofisrael.com.
You can also just go to the website. There's like a donate button. You can just
That's
donate.
true,
right
but
to
I
us.
mean, if they want to give more than that to actually help us move forward, and like any donation helps. But sometimes someone's like, you know what? That's what this is for. I'm going to give them enough money to help them just get this infrastructure done so they're not in physical danger, not from the Arabs or the Supreme Court or the leftists, but just from electrical fires and exposed electrical cords. So someone may want to do that. I always feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I know that we've given everything we have, and we've given so much of ourselves, and it's been such a privilege to do that it does seem reasonable and fair to give other people the opportunity.
People want to know what we need. People want to be a part. Absolutely.
So the last thing, a great thing that happened was just yesterday. One of my personal heroes that I was honored to chaperone around Israel about 13 years ago, was it? When he came to Israel, was Ambassador Alan Keyes, a tremendously wise, brilliant, articulate, one of the best orators that I've ever seen in my life. And he has such a passion and love for Israel. I remember when I was at Yeshiva University watching him on MSNBC. He had his own show on MSNBC just for a few minutes. And just, a few weeks or whatever it was, until he was just so good and so true that MSNBC's like, okay, we're not Fox News or anything like that. Back off. But I remember he showed a picture of the X-ray of one of the terror victims from Israel that was filled with nails and those metal balls that the terrorists put into the bombs, and showed what we were facing. Anyways, a real lover of Israel, he came out here to the farm, and it was the last stop before he left the country, and it was such an honor to connect with him and to the people that were with him. They said it was the highlight of their entire trip. By the way, that's something that I've seen, and it's not just, I know what I know. You know people when they're sincere, you can hear it in their voice. And when people say that this place is the highlight of their entire trip, I mean, that's what came back from them. And of course, he shared a Torah with me that was so beautiful. We were walking around, and I was talking about the challenges we're having, which we'll soon do a show about, just about that, the Supreme Court and the challenges we're facing there, and all of the different challenges we're facing. And I said, sometimes it just feels like I have no idea what's going to be 5 years from now, or a year from now, or even a month from now. I'm just trying to see what situation I'm facing right now, and what is the next move that is the right step for the next step, just the next step. I said, it's like a car in a very foggy night that has these headlights, and you can only see what's right in front of you, but that's enough because you just operate based on what's right in front of you. And then he said, just like King David said, that God is ner l'ragli. He is the light for my feet. Why is he the light for my feet? Why does King David say that? Because he illuminates your feet, what's right in front of your feet right now. He will just help you enough to give you that next step. And why does he do that? Why doesn't he let you see the whole thing? Because when you have just your next step, and he is illuminating that one next step for you, then you're really walking with him and being guided by him. And just like the manna, you're not able to store it. You don't get to think long term and to feel secure in a world of insecurity. There is no security. The only security is in Hashem. And when you're able to really put your faith in him, that's when real joy and real happiness and living a life of vibrance and vitality comes. Any last thoughts, Jeremy?
No, I really like that idea very much. I really want to think about that. There's just so many things that we can get lost in our worries, worried about the future, worried about, it's endless, especially in Israel. There's just so much to be concerned with. But I feel like if we just stay focused on the task at hand, what do we have control over? What can we fix? What can we make better? How do we push the story forward? What contribution can I make? And then focus on that, and then really walk with God. And so I feel like everyone that tunes into the Land of Israel Network, it's just such a beautiful network of people that are all in their own ways, just trying to push the story forward and trying to walk with God.
Now, one of the most important things we got to talk about right now, and we're going to mention it on the next show, and the network is going to be talking about it, is that for Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, this coming new moon, we are doing the Land of Israel Network Shabbaton. This is a new thing. It's an experiment. It's been untested before, but it's going to be me and Shayna, you and your wife, and Yishai and his wife, and we're running a Shabbaton at the Dead Sea called the Israel Inspired Retreat, and it's exciting for me. One of the things that really excites me the most about it is Yishai Fleischer. I feel like that guy is really on the in his A game right now in his life. He sees things clearly. He embraces opportunities. He's not intimidated by challenges. He's fighting the fight of 1,000 armies here in Israel. He really is, and I find him to be a tremendous inspiration. And for us to have this Shabbaton, where there's going to be Torah study and connection and meditation and prayer, and we're going to be able to connect and to talk about everything that's going on in Israel today on spiritual levels. It's going to be a really special weekend. You can find out about it on thelandofisrael.travel. That's thelandofisrael.travel. You can see all the details there. We'd love to have you join us. And that is our show for this week. Parshat Tetzaveh. May it be a good one. We're learning about the construction of the tabernacle, of the temple. May the temple be rebuilt soon in our days. Shalom.
The Land of Israel Network presents the Israel-inspired retreat, Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, a 3-night event by the Dead Sea, Thursday through Sunday, March 7th through March 10th, 2019. Spend an unforgettable Shabbat with your hosts, Ari and Shayna Abramowitz, Yishai and Malka Fleischer, Jeremy and Tehila Gimpel, and special guests. at the 5-star Royal Dead Sea Resort. Uplifting prayers, dynamic lectures, inspiring Torah, one-on-one meetings with the hosts, a special women's program, children's camp and babysitters, guided meditation on the beach, live music and entertainment, exciting hikes and excursions. For more information, visit our special website, thelandofisrael.travel. That's thelandofisrael.travel for the